Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Josh, and this is Practical Apologetics. Today we're going to be kicking off a brand new series on the reliability of the Gospels and the book of Acts. But before we get into ancient history, let me just take you back to my law enforcement days for a minute. I want you to imagine for a second there's a bank robbery. Police respond, the scene is chaotic. People are panicking. Now imagine I separate 4 witnesses and start taking statements from each one. The first witness is the bank manager, who is sitting near the front window. He tells me 4 men robbed the bank and all of them appeared armed. Then I interview the teller behind the counter. She tells me only 2 men robbed the bank. Now that already sounds like a contradiction, right? But then I interview an employee in the back near the safe. That employee says 1 man robbed the bank, pointed a gun at her, and forced her to open the safe. Finally, I find a customer who is just standing in line. They tell me there were 3 robbers and only 2 of them had guns. Now think about that for a second. 4 witnesses, 4 different statements, all different numbers of suspects, different details, different perspectives. At first glance, someone might say these stories contradict each other. But then investigators review the security footage in the bank, and suddenly, everything makes sense. The manager near the window was the only person who saw the lookout standing right outside the bank. The customer in line saw 3 robbers because 1 stayed in a corner where the teller couldn't see him from their angle. The teller only focused on the 2 men directly interacting with her. And the employee in the back by the safe only saw the 1 man holding a gun to her head near the safe. In other words, every witness was telling the truth from their vantage point. But it was their own limited perspective. And this is exactly how real eyewitness testimony works. Different people notice different things. Different details stand out. Stress affects memory. Angles matter. Position matters. Attention matters. Now here's the important part. If I interviewed all 4 witnesses, and every statement sounded extremely similar with the same sequence of events, similar wording, same exact details being emphasized in the same order, that would actually make me suspicious as an investigator. Because real, reliable eyewitness testimony usually contains natural variation that can sound contradictory on the surface, but when put together and examined, it tells the full story. When testimony is unnaturally similar, investigators often start wondering whether their stories were coordinated, rehearsed, or influenced by each other in a negative way. And this is where the Gospels become very interesting. Critics will often say the Gospel accounts differ from each other. And my response is, okay, they may have differences, but are they contradictions? Or are they the kinds of variations you would actually expect from real eyewitness testimony? Because there's a huge difference. A contradiction is when 2 claims clearly cannot both be true at the same time and in the same sense. But the differences I've seen people point to in the Gospels are not contradictions at all. They're different perspectives and different details being focused on by different authors. And remember, Luke and Acts were originally one connected work written by Luke. Together with Matthew, Mark, Luke, and the book of Acts, we have multiple accounts describing Jesus and the rise of the early church. So in this series, I want to examine some of the most common alleged contradictions people bring up. And see, do they actually disprove the credibility of the Gospels? Or do they look more like the kinds of natural variations we would expect from authentic eyewitness testimony? That's what we're going to investigate, and I want your help. If there are contradictions or differences you've heard people bring up between the Gospels and the book of Acts, or between the different Gospels, or you've realized them yourself maybe reading through them, leave them in the comments below, please. But try to keep it practical if you can, ideally 1 or 2 differences per comment, and include the specific verses if possible. That way I can actually examine them carefully and potentially address them in future videos in this series. If comments just become giant lists of different claims, it becomes kind of difficult to properly investigate any of them fairly. So please leave your best examples below and we'll work through them together. If you could like this video and subscribe for more content, I would really appreciate it. And until next time, thank you and God bless.